So let's get started. Welcome to the webinar, everybody. I'm Clive.
I'm Louis.
And we're excited to share the 3 BIM planning steps that would please your owner. We hear this a lot. Lots of owners read online about what BIM can do. Huge cost savings, huge potential in when they're running and operating their buildings, using the model as an information repository for all of their assets. And we think that a lot of owners, when they've read things online, they would be quite pleased about it.
It's going to save the world. It's going to save us a lot of money.
In order to get there, it needs to have some kind of a plan. We know that some owners can get very excited about what BIM can do, but how do they ask for BIM? How do they request it? And this will be our first poll. Maybe the answer is no. Nobody's asking for BIM. The second one is that they just say, BIM please. They're not really sure about how to define it. This one, I'm not sure how it translates around the world, but certainly in the UK it would be everything but the kitchen sink.
Do it all. I'm not going to define it. Just do it all.
It's like a 1-0. Do we want BIM? No BIM. We want everything you can do with regard to BIM. Mm-hmm. And then the fourth answer is that they provide a very detailed requirements list that's based on smart and very clear goals.
And you've been very fortunate.
So I'll launch the poll.
Those were the answers.
Please finish up now, and I am going to end the poll, and I'm going to share the results. And it looks like, so by far, they say BIM please, and so it's kind of almost like we called this one.
LOD 500.
Plus Kobe please, yeah, okay. So owners want to have BIM. They've seen something, read something online about it, but what can it do for them?
Yeah, have they even asked themselves if there's a good reason for it?
Yeah, why are they applying BIM? Mm-hmm. Is it just because it's all the rage and they feel they should? Or is it for a specific reason? We saw that maybe these could be some of the two highest answers. BIM please and LOD 500 plus Kobe. If I was an owner and I said, hey Louis, can you do some BIM for us on our project?
If I'm trying to win a project, absolutely.
You would say yes?
Yes.
And so if I asked for LOD 500 plus Kobe, even though, as most of the replies would be, well, we do Revit, we use some kind of scoping, but most of it's 200, 300, I wouldn't really define it. We're never going to take on as-built, but...
Or we have a BIM manager, I'm sure he'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out. Let's not worry about it. So what we see is a lot of miscommunication in actually defining what's required. And what we end up seeing at the end of the day is different results. Yeah. So would you like door 1, 2, or 3, Louis?
Let's do 1.
Do 1? You know the order of the slides. So we could get BIM like this, we could get BIM like this, or we could get BIM like this. And they are all BIM.
Right. But they all cost very different.
You can use the model on the right-hand side for certain things that you would not be able to on the left-hand side. Is there too much in it? Is it going to get bogged down? What are you really going to do?
Not to mention time-consuming.
So handing that down the line for a contractor, what are they expecting? What can they use? And sometimes we've seen this happen where the contractor's trying to put a square peg in a round hole.
Right. There's uses for design. And they go through a process, and then we find the contractors having to restart this process instead of it being aligned and being efficient.
So people talk about design BIM and construction BIM. When the owner's not aligned, then it's very difficult. We've shared this a couple of times with BIM blame. The implication of poor planning leads to the finger pointing. But we know that it's not the people, it's the process that we use in order to define something.
What we've seen is just that the contracts aren't laid out properly.
Yeah, so the owner says, I want BIM, but there's no process defined with a supporting platform that has been able to cater for that. Right. Be able to agree between the owner, the design teams, the contractor, all of the people involved, what actually is required. This has been one of the big issues. And quite surprisingly as well, when you look at some of the statistics, some of the understanding of what's happened in our industry and what's being taught even here in construction management programs. So you can see right away at the bottom here where we've got constructability. It's a very obvious one.
Right.
Yeah. 4D scheduling. It's a cool one. But when you talk about the risk mitigation, it's not so appealing.
No.
Even though we say that it is one of the most important and absolutely the first step that you should do. So to introduce the 3 steps that we're talking about to help your owner and to plan better BIM, the first one is identifying project risks. Because you could ask for BIM, but BIM is not the solution. You could actually ask for a very detailed BIM about something specific, but without defining what it's going to mitigate, whatever it's going to increase the efficiency for or benefit the project.
What it's going to do for me.
What it's going to do for the owner. So as a first thing, before we talk about what BIM is and what BIM can do, it's identifying the areas that we can attack with BIM.
Now, that could lead us to LOD 500 if we just choose all of them.
Yeah, so you can have an owner that says, well, yeah, I want that.
Right.
Well, what about this? Yeah, I want that too. What about it? Yes, I want. So you have to understand that we can, but it's going to be very difficult. And this comical slide here saying that we offer 3 kinds of service, good, cheap, and fast. We can only choose 2. The point of this part of the slide is trying to attack all of them would be spreading too thin, potentially. So trying to use a conversation with an owner very early on to identify which ones are really key. That has been what we've seen be very successful when you apply BIM.
So once you've done that, you can now try to align those certain uses. What we have here are a few examples of BIM uses that can help you align to those risks. As Clive mentioned, a complicated design, you might want to use coordination.
Yeah, you might have a very tight site that you have to do some kind of simulation for, a logistics or a 4D simulation. Or you might have some people in the near vicinity that are really interested in what's going on. It's a new shopping complex or something like that. So maybe virtual reality would be useful to share that with people that are not familiar, help them understand what's going to happen beforehand. So first step was to identify the key risk areas. The second step is to apply the BIM use to those specific areas. And then the third step is to identify for that specific BIM use at the time that is required, what is the scope? What's important for that BIM use? If we're talking about some kind of coordination, then what do we want to make sure fits? If we're talking about virtual reality, how much material applied do we need? Do we need it to be absolutely lifelike, or do we need somebody to be able to walk through so that they understand the safety, life safety routes to be able to get out of the building?
We can save so much time if it's a VR specific BIM use just by focusing on the shell of a building, as opposed to all of the systems.
Yep. So there are the 3 that we're going to walk through. The first one, identify the risk. The second one, what are the BIM uses out of all of the different BIM uses that are available that would attack those risks? And then once we've identified when we are going to execute, when we need that by, we can identify what the key scope areas are for that.